Good morning, church. How you doing today? Everybody real good? Come on, man. It is Sunday. It is a great day to be in God's house. We've been on a couple of Sundays now that are very cool. We had our Vision Sunday a couple weeks ago where we celebrated it being a church for 8 years now, which is kind of exciting. Last week, yeah, that's awesome, isn't it? We had a big old party. Last week, of course, Super Bowl Sunday. We love to do that as a church. We get to learn and grow a lot that Sunday and get to know each other a little better too. But this week is special because we're kicking off a new series. And we're in week number 1 of this series called The Vow. And if you've never met me before, my name's TJ, pastor here. And we're going to talk about relationships. And the title, The Vow, is obviously focused around wedding vows. But if you're not married, I think you're going to get a lot out of this too. If you hope to be married, you'll get double out of this, okay? But every one of us, I think, can learn and grow in our relationships, can't we? Like, I don't think any one of us have like that perfect handle on relationships with all the people in our life. Unless you have no relationships, which is an entirely different issue completely, okay? So I think we can all grow in our relationships, right? So that's what I'm going to do over this next couple weeks in this series. We're going to really learn on how to get better about our relationships. Now, God's Word has a lot to say about our relationship with Him, but did you know it actually has a lot to say with our relationship with each other? He actually cares about the way we treat each other. He actually cares about the way our marriages go and the way we raise our kids and the way we treat our friends. And he really does care about that. So there's a lot of that in His Word. When you really dig in and you just start to read, there's a lot of things that He talks about on how to treat each other. Now, what I'm going to do in this series, I'm going to give you a couple of vows, some things that we can make a vow to make our relationships better. So I might even do later on a repeat after me, just depends how we're feeling, okay? You guys know the I do's and the repeat after me's in a wedding. You guys probably had your own vows, or you wrote your own vows. Well, I'm going to give you some new ones that you can add to your old vows, okay? When we do this. Now, let's think about the one. You guys ever kind of watch movies or read books or whatever and magazines, and they're trying to figure out who's their one that they're going to marry. Like there's this big concept that if I don't marry the right one, the one perfect person for me, all will be lost. Now, if we play that through in our head a little bit, if one person marries the wrong person, it means they married the wrong person and they married the wrong person. So the person they were supposed to marry married the wrong people too. You guys can see how this would be messy very quickly, right? Like, basically, no one's ever married the right person because that one person screwed it up thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, right? So if that concept, if you play that out, it's not actually true, is it? Now, each one of us are looking for one of the ones, right? One of the perfect ones. But think about it, it just doesn't hold true. So what if we actually decided that our number one wasn't going to be one of these people around us, okay? Even if you're married to them, maybe they're not the number one, but they're going to be our number 2. Wait a minute, TJ, they can't be my number 2. I'm married to them. Oh, but I've got a better number 1. You guys ready for this? Let's go to vow number 1. Vow number 1 is this. I promise God will be my first priority and my spouse will be my second. If your wife is here, if your husband is here, look at them right now and be like, baby, you're my number 2. You're my number 2. And that's the way it's supposed to be. Because before we married them, who was supposed to be our number 1? God. And if we put them in the position of God, what's that going to do for your marriage? Is it going to work or is it going to break? Well, when I put upon my spouse that I need unconditional love, I need unconditional forgiveness, I need unconditional grace, I need you to be there 100% of the time when I need to talk, I need you to understand the intimacies of my soul without me expressing it all the way, I need you to, right? Like think about these things. I need you to always know everything that I need when I need it, as soon as I need it. Like all of these things seem ridiculous, and we're setting our spouse up for absolute and total failure. And eventually, when they can't meet those needs often enough, you might actually begin to resent them for it. You cannot put a person in the position of God. Only God can hold the first priority. Only God can be all of those things. He's the only one that provides unconditional love. He's the only one that provides unconditional forgiveness, grace, understands your innermost being, creates you in such a way that He can have interaction with you and knows your needs as soon as you know them or before you even know them without you ever even having to express them. That's the perfect relationship, isn't it? And it deserves to be priority number one. Now, for those of you who are not married, we're going to change the vow just a little bit, okay? Well, maybe you intend to be married someday. So I promise God will be my first priority, and I will prepare myself for my second. All right? If you're not married, what are you going to do? You're not going to put your spouse on number two because they're not here yet, but you're going to prepare yourself for your number two. So all of the single people in the room, I want you to do a mental exercise with me. You guys ready? You don't have to say anything out loud. I want you to picture the perfect person for you. There'll probably be some physical qualities. There'll be some emotional qualities. There'll be some spiritual qualities. I'm hoping that there's spiritual qualities in this person, that they love God, they honor God, they're funny, they're generous, they're tall, dark, and handsome, right? Like, I don't know, what are you looking for, right? Picture that person. This is who I want to see in my life. This will be my number two someday. Now, I want you to take it a step further. This person that you're looking for, who are they looking for? Are they looking for a person like you? Uh-oh. No, I did. Oh, but you what? See, we're preparing to meet that person. And if we're not that person yet, we need to become the one who falls in love with God, who honors God, who is generous and loves other people. And we need to become the kind of person that they're looking for, right? So what do? God is our number one. Who's our number two? Our spouse. Now this gets tricky, doesn't it? Sometimes in life, we accidentally slip someone over our spouse, don't we? No? Nobody? Okay. Sometimes, maybe I'm the only sinner in this room, but sometimes I slip me above her. You guys have never done that, have you? You slip you above him. Right? Like sometimes selfishness comes in and we're like, yeah, God's still number one, but you know what? I would like to be number two for just a little while. Right? And what happens to the arrangements? We dismiss the priority of them. Or what happens maybe when you have kids? Have kids ever slipped up on the list? Oh man, they just need me so much right now, and you ignore your spouse for them. Maybe the career slips in a little bit. And your spouse goes down to number 3 or number 4, behind the kids, behind the job, behind the hobby, behind the fill in the blank, right? And it starts to slip down, and your spouse goes lower and lower and lower. But you know what? It's a fight. We need to keep the priority up, don't we? I was sitting around the dinner table with my wife and kids, and we were talking about love and how, because my kids, my son, he always asks me, and my wife, Mommy, do you love me even though I make bad choices sometimes? Isn't that the same question we ask God, right? And it's the same thing. It's just like, Daddy, do you love me even though I make bad choices sometimes? It's like, yes, absolutely, we love you. And then the conversation of love often comes up in our house because our little guy talks about love all the time. Literally all the time. You guys don't believe me, he's 3, but it's true. Every single moment there's silence in the room, he just looks at us and goes, I love you. 100% of the time. No, you think it's cute, but after a while, you're like, bro, I get it. Like, I'm not even lying. And sometimes it takes all that we are not to go, buddy, I know, can you never say it again, please? Right? Like, because sometimes it's hard to be a parent, right? And so anyway, we talk about love a lot. And one time we were sitting around the table with all the kids and my wife and I, and the kids are like, do you love us? We're like, yeah, we love you. Do you love me more than anybody? Of course, except for mom. What? Wait a minute, you love someone more than us? Oh yeah, I love your mom way more than I love you guys. And they were like staggered, just blown away. And I'm like, no, it's absolutely true though, because she's my number 2. I mean, God's my number 1, she's my number 2. You guys are like 3, maybe 4 some days. You know what I'm saying? Like, just depends on, I'm just kidding, they're number 3, okay? But the best gift I think I can give my children is the fact that I love their mother, right? Like if I love her really, really well, they know that I love them too. And when they go off and they look for the one or their 2 or whatever we want to call it, someday, they're going to know what a good marriage relationship looks like. And they're going to know what good love looks like because I've loved their mother so well. And so we need to make sure that our priorities start to go in order. If you look back to the book of Genesis in the very beginning, the very first couple is Adam and Eve. You guys, you've read your Bible before. Yeah. Okay. Adam and Eve. they sin and there's this brokenness that comes in the world. But in this story, there's this verse that I want to share with you guys, and we'll go back to it twice. But this verse kind of covers something that I think kind of illustrates this priority lesson, all right? So if we go to Genesis chapter 2, verse 24, it says this: "That is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they become one flesh." Leaves father and mother and is united to the wife. There's a priority change when a marriage occurs. You guys get this? So when you're growing up, predominantly your number two after God is typically your family, your parents. They're what they think matters, who they are, their influence matters. But when you get married, there's a new number two in town, right? And isn't this difficult for some of the parents? Right? Sometimes the family kind of gets in the way of the marriage because they can't relinquish the role. Now, I'm not talking about any of you guys. You guys are the perfect Christians, I know, all right? But we're talking about other people, like in the movies, okay? Because your in-laws are perfect, aren't they? Mine are. I don't know about you guys. Okay. So that's the thing. Like there's a change in priority when you get married. There's a change in priority when that happens. The word leaves is actually this word. Check it out in the Hebrew. I'll probably butcher it, but you would too, let's be honest. It's the word azab, which means to loosen or to relinquish. There's a priority in your life established, but when you become married, there's a loosening of other relationships so that you can find your priority in your spouse. You have to let go. They have to slip down the list, and you have to keep them as number two. God's first, spouse second, everybody else after that. Let me show you this in the New Testament in the book of Ephesians, all right? Ephesians chapter 5 says this. Now, this is kind of a controversial verse. I mean, people have kind of been like, I don't like that verse, TJ, and I'm going to show you in a way that actually you might actually love it. Check it out. "For wives, this means submit to your husbands as to the Lord." Now, I've talked to a lot of women, and they're like, yeah, okay, right, submit, right? But here's what I'm talking about. What am I talking about? Priorities, right? If you're going to put God number one, you're going to put your spouse number two. Doesn't that sound like this verse right here? Like if I'm gonna submit to God and make him a priority in my life, shouldn't I submit to my spouse and make them a priority too? That's what he's saying. Let's do that. Let's make them our number two. And then he goes on and he tells the guys in verse 25 this: "Husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her." If the church was ahead of his own life, his own sanctity, his own selfishness, right? He says, I'll do it for you. I'll love you guys. I'll give my life for you. Husbands, do the same thing for your wife to the point where you give up your own life, which means her priority is over you. Does that make sense? There's an established order of priority. It's your spouse over yourself. It's your spouse over everyone. Because this is the order that God has established in our life. And if we want to have an established marriage that is blessed by God, we got to do these things. When we do these things, things begin to change. When you know that you're their priority, doesn't it make the relationship change a little differently? Don't you know that when you're the priority to them, that their motives are pure? At no point do you go, well, I mean, they're just trying to hurt me. No, if you know that you're their priority, you know that it was an accident if they ever hurt you at all, right? We need to make the priority happen. Vow number two is this. Vow number two is, I promise to always pursue my two. You guys got a two? You hope you have a two someday? You got to pursue them. You got to chase after them, right? When I was younger, I met my wife. She wasn't my wife yet. She was just a girl that I knew and I liked. And then I said, you want to go on a date with me? She said, yeah, I'll go on a date with you. So we went on a date, and I pursued her. I cleaned my car. Right? When we started dating, I had a 1989 Mustang convertible. You're like, ooh, that's so nice. Yeah, it was a 4-cylinder, slow as can be, super slow. White leather interior, okay? Red dash, hula girl right on top of it, right? It sounds amazing, but it was really just a cheap little old car that went slow, okay? But I would clean it. I'd get the Chick-fil-A wrappers out of the floorboard, and I would make sure my water bottles were out of the back seat. You know, I wanted to impress her. I wanted to pursue her. I would go to her house and sit with their family as they watched seventh heaven. My Lord, help me. But it was worth it. I pursued her. I endured every episode for the love of her, right? Like pursuit, right? But what happens after a while when you get married, you're like, ooh, I've already got him. You only ever pursue things naturally that you don't have already. Isn't that true? You always pursue things you don't have, and once you have them, you stop pursuing them. And that is a death nail in your marriage. We must make a vow. I will pursue my two. I gotta keep dating. I gotta keep acting that way. I gotta keep pursuing. That'll keep my marriage healthy and whole. All right? You guys ready for that verse again? Genesis chapter 2. We're gonna go back to it. We're gonna highlight another word. That is why a man leaves, so we know that we need to change the priority of relationship, and his father and mother, and they're united to his wife. So this word united is in English, it's just like, okay, they came together, two became one. But there's a little bit more to that. It's a continual thing. Look at it in the original language. Again, gonna butcher it. I know you would too. All right, dawback. It says cling or adhere. We're clinging and adhering to catch by pursuit. It's not just like we're together, but there's this momentum. We're moving towards one another, pursuing. To pursue hard with affection and devotion. Come on, I know there's not a lady in the house that does not want to be pursued hard with affection and devotion, right? I know you want that. And husbands, you got to give it. You got to do it. Keep pursuing. Ladies, keep pursuing your husband. And when we do this union will grow stronger and stronger. When we stop doing it, we're moving in the opposite direction. We're growing further and further apart. The pursuit continues again and again and again and again, right? Look at this verse, this word united, the dawback, in other verses, okay? Check it out. Psalms 63, this same word, it says to follow close. To follow close. So you're close together. There's this closeness between the two of you. In Job, it says this, they are joined fast to one another. Same word, just different ways of translating it to one another. They cling together and cannot be parted. Judges, it's actual, like a physical pursuit. They pursued hard after them. That word is the same word, though. The same Hebrew word that just says, I'm chasing, I'm pursuing, I'm initiating, I'm going after. Listen, when you're married, it is easy to go, you know what? We're here. Let's just be here. Let's just settle here. But you know what? When we want to have a greater vow, we need to be the one that is uniting. We need to change our priority, but then Genesis tells us we need to keep pursuing. We need to keep uniting. We need to keep chasing after them. And when we do that, we're going to have a much different marriage in our lives. Okay, so let's get practical. You guys ready for this? I got 3 ways that we can pursue our spouse. And if you're not married, take notes because you'll use them someday, I promise, okay? Number 1, when you think something good, say it. I'm an internal processor. How about you guys? Some of you guys are external processors. I get it. Could you externally process to someone else and then come talk to me first? Because I'm an internal processor, right? Like I think and I think and I think and I think, and then I come to a conclusion and I may never say it, ever. But when it comes to a marriage relationship, that's not good. I actually have to process, come to the conclusion, and then I actually have to take the risk, and this is a risk for a person like me, I have to say it. I have to bear my emotions for a minute and actually speak it out loud. Is that hard for you guys like it's hard for me? A couple of you guys, maybe. It's hard for me. It's difficult for me to understand my emotions and then have my emotions laid bare before the people around me. So I need to think something good, but then I actually have to say it. I need to go hunt them down. I need to go find them. I need to pursue them. Maybe they're not near you. Maybe you need to text them. Come on, somebody, you need to text some love notes today, okay? Everyone just boom, do it, okay? Like love you, thought it, said it, right? Like whatever it is, just however you connect and communicate. If you're a songwriter, man, write that love song. I'm telling you, good things will happen, okay? All right, here's a verse for you. Hebrews chapter 3 says this, but encourage one another daily as long as it's called today. So is he saying, think it and then sit on it for the right moment to say it? No, he's saying do it right now. If you think it, say it. If it's good, do it, right? Like think about it and say it so that none of you may be hardened by sin's deceitfulness. This is powerful. If we don't say it, the enemy's going to be saying something opposite to them. If you're thinking, I love them, that was such a great day we had yesterday, and you never say it, the enemy's going to go, man, they didn't even care. You guys get what this verse is saying? If we don't say it, someone else will, but in the opposite way. So we need to take the time that is required to say it while it is today. If you think it, say it. Now, you guys want to hear what this sounds like a little bit? Okay. Here's, ladies, she wants to know, guys, take notes, do you love me today? She wants to know, do you love me today? Guys, you can win really, really easily in your marriage by answering this one very simple question. Do you love me today? And the answer is yes. Okay, I'm just going to tell you, just throw that one out there. Like, yes, I do. You're going to win in your marriage when you do this, all right? Okay. Ladies, listen, think about this. Here's what he wants to know. He wants to know, there it is, do you believe in me today? Like it's great that you love me, that's wonderful, but do you believe in me today? And I can speak from a guy who has a wife that's very encouraging in this way. Do you believe in me today? I can't do anything on my own, but when she's like, hey, you can do this, I know I can do it. She may be lying to my face. I don't know, but I believe I can. Because the most special person, the highest human in my priority list, believes in me, I can actually do it. I know that. So, ladies, tell him he's awesome. Tell him he looks good. Doesn't matter if he does or not, right? Just walk it out. Live it out. He wants to know, do you believe in me today? And if you answer this question with a yes, it's going to change your relationship, I promise you. So when you think it, say it, all right? Number 2, another practical way we can approach this is when you think something special, do it. When you think something special, do it. When that thing comes into your mind, like, man, you know what would be really cool if we went on a date tonight. Okay, go do it. Simple, right? When you think something special, man, you know what, we haven't done X, Y, or Z, or I haven't watched a chick flick with her in a long time. Okay, babe, I'm gonna pick a chick flick, right? Oh, here's a special one. We have a marriage conference coming up, right, guys? I'm telling you right now, and I can only speak from a man's perspective on this. I know that if you guys go and you sign up for this marriage conference and say, babe, I've already paid for it, I've already arranged it, the kids are taken care of, she's gonna be like, you are the most handsome man in the entire planet. I love you so much right now. I believe in you. I believe in you, right? Think it, but then do it. You can't just think it because it gets stuck in our brains. Guys, we lose things in our brains, don't we? It's gone. You gotta do it. You gotta take action on it. All right, James chapter 4, verse 17. When I was a teenager, I read this verse and it wrecked me, all right? If anyone then knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is sin for them. Up to this point in my relationship with God, when I heard this verse, I thought if I avoid all the bad things, I'm good. But then James goes and ruins it by saying, if you don't do the good things you know you're supposed to do, you ain't good. Dang it. There's things I'm not supposed to do, and there's things I'm supposed to do, and if I don't do the things I'm supposed to do, it's sin. Hey, same thing applies in our marriage, man. Your marriage will get better when you start to apply it to your life and you do the things you know you should do. When you think it, when you do it, when you have that action mindset. Now, there's a lot of excuses in this, right? Dates are expensive, babysitters, the time, it's so busy. Listen, it doesn't have to be extravagant. You don't have to take them to an all-inclusive resort in Hawaii. You don't have to take these huge, grand acts of just passion, right? Once the kids are in bed, 2 candles and a little cupcake and I love you and I believe in you, that's going to change your marriage right there, right? And it's going to cost you maybe $5 on a bad day, right? Depending how expensive the cupcake is, of course. But when you do those types of things, just sit with each other. Just go to breakfast together. Just have a quiet moment and a conversation with the phones away. The phone's away, the TV off, and you actually communicate with one another. Man, it's going to change things, but you have to make it a priority. You have to look at the relationship a little differently. You have to do the things in your heart. You have to say the things in your heart. And the third thing is this. When you want something different, be it. When you want things to change, lead the way. If you want your relationship to grow more intimate, lead with openness and intimacy. Maybe day one it won't be there, but it will be there eventually. You want it to be more caring? Care more. Want to be more generous? Be more generous, right? Like you lead the way. You set the example in this. Now there's 2 sentences I want to share with you guys. They're a little longer, so if you're taking notes, maybe you just want to take a picture of this one instead. To get what you've never had, you must do what you've never done. If you want your marriage to look differently, you're going to have to do things you've never done before. You can't do the same old and expect that your marriage is going to look different at the end of it. You can't go through the motions and the routines of life and go, hey, I'm hoping for a new result, but I keep doing the same old thing. No. You got to try something different, try something new. You have to act differently, love differently, give differently, show compassion and passion differently. You just got to keep pressing, keep pursuing, right? The second one is this. To get what you once had, you must do what you once did. Remember when you would wash the car just to pick her up? Remember when you got ready just a little bit extra longer because he was coming over? Right? Like, what happened to that? Our pursuit, we got each other and it was over, right? No, keep pursuing. If it used to be better than it is today, go back to what you used to do, right? Go back to what you used to do. Because it'll get that way again. But we need to take the actions that give us the results. If our marriage isn't where it needs to be, we need to take some actions that get it there, right? There's a verse in the book of Revelation that's a spiritual verse that will take some practical application in our marriage, right? Remember the height from which you have fallen. Repent and do the things you did at first. So in this passage, God's talking to a group of people who used to be really in love with God, and now they're not as in love with God. They're not as passionate. And he goes, remember how it used to be? You fell down. The passion dropped, the love dropped. He goes, look how far you've fallen. Go back to the way it was. Do what you used to do. Listen, in your marriage, if it's fallen, think about how it used to be, what you used to do, and start doing those things. And yeah, there might be some brokenness in between, and there might be some pain, and there might be some hurt, but it's a good thing we serve a God that can heal all of those. Because he can restore what we seem to think is completely broken and never able to be restored. He moves the mountain that seems immovable in our relationships. The distance between us seems so great. The chasm is so wide, yet God's the bridge builder that brings people back together. Remember the height from which you've fallen and begin to do the things you did at first. This is true spiritually, it's true relationally. Now, this is all possible, I believe, because we trust in a God who is a restorer. Because we believe in him, we walk with him, we honor him. And maybe in this room this morning, this verse doesn't have a relational application for you, but right now it has a spiritual application. Maybe when you look back across the course of your life, there was better times with God than there is today. Where you felt more whole in your connection with him. Or perhaps maybe you're here today and you're like, TJ, things are pretty good, but I know there's something missing in my life. It's this. There's potential of God to work in your life today. There's potential of God to work in you. And when he works in you, he's going to work in your marriage. Because the greatest gift you could ever give your spouse is you in love with God. You with him as the priority and them as the number 2. But you got to take care of that first priority. It's got to be number 1. And if there's something between you and God right now that is distanced, something between you and God that is broken or hurting or it's not what it used to be, today's the day to decide, God, let's fix it. God, forgive me. God, make me closer to you. Let me hear your voice again. I want to get back in your word. I want to understand what you have for me, the direction, the purpose. Because when I do that, I know that my marriage gets better and my relationship with my kids gets better and my work life gets better. Everything gets better when I'm right with him. That's the initiator. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a moment. We're going to just quiet moment. We're going to pray. And if it makes you feel more comfortable, maybe close your eyes, bow your heads. The only thing I'd ask, no noises, no one moving around, okay? I want you to take a moment just to listen for the voice of God in your life. What's he saying to you today? Is it something about your marriage? Is it something that you've been needing to say but you haven't been able to say it? Or you've been keeping it inside? Is it something you wanted to do but you haven't done it yet? Or there's a change you want to see that you haven't initiated, you haven't become it? Or maybe your priorities are out of order and you need to ask God for forgiveness. You need to ask your spouse for forgiveness. You need to take that order and you need to prioritize it. Or maybe today that number one in your life isn't truly number one. God's not number one. And you've been putting that on your spouse, you've been putting that on your work, you've been putting your kids in that place. Listen, your kids can't do for you what God can do for you. You'll never find the meaning in your career and your purpose. You'll never find it in those things. You'll only ever find it in him. So if he's not number one, today's the day to make him number one. Make him number one. I'm gonna lead you through a prayer. It's simple. Say, God, you're my number one. I'm gonna put you there from today and for all my days. If that's you, that's a priority that you need to make. Why don't you pray this prayer quietly in your heart, right where you are? Jesus, thank you for the cross. Thank you for making a way for me. Thank you for giving me what I need to become close to you. And today I choose your grace. I choose your forgiveness. And I choose to make you a priority in my life. Because you're the only one that can actually fulfill that role. God, I pray that you would help me order the rest of my priorities. My relationships with my family, my spouse, my work, my career, my purpose, my calling. God, help me put it in the right order. Thank you, Jesus. In your name we pray. Everybody says, amen. Thank you so much for joining us online today. If you prayed that prayer with us, we would like to help you on your spiritual journey. If you don't mind going to theshorechurch.com or emailing us at hello@theshorechurch.com, we can send you some information to start this spiritual journey of faith. And of course, we'd always love to see you in person at The Shore Church, 3375 Fruitvale Road.